I shared in a news interview about 2 years ago with the New York Times that I had a family member, a cousin, that I grew up seeing as a child. Whenever I went to Lake City, South Carolina, where my mother's family is from, whenever I went to Lake City, South Carolina, I would see him there. And whenever he came up to visit family in Richmond, Virginia, I would see him as well. We both went to college at the same time. I went to Morehouse, and he came to Atlanta to study fashion art and design. We both came to Atlanta at the same time. And after my freshman or sophomore year in college, I noticed that I stopped seeing him. I stopped seeing him at family events. I stopped seeing him at family gatherings. And after some time, I began asking questions about, where's Terrence? I haven't seen Terrence. And initially, there was this silence. People didn't know, or perhaps people knew and didn't want to say. And then after some time and some continued persistence, I'd hear people speculate or make comments about his identity or his sexual orientation, as if some kind of way that was some reason for explaining why he wasn't around or why I didn't see him anymore. And then after some continual prodding, months and perhaps even years later, I learned that my cousin Terrence had HIV, and the reason that I didn't see him was because of that. We have a major problem in the African American community of dealing with issues by not dealing with them. We try to deal with issues by hiding the issues or trying to avoid the issues. You know how we do. Back in the day, if a teenage girl got pregnant, she would leave town, and then 9 or 10 months later, she'd come back to town with a little sister. And if we had a family member who had a mental condition or a mental illness, we'd put them in the back room and close the door, and we wouldn't see them any longer. We deal with this too much, and we have to break the conspiracy of silence in our communities and even in our church, in our churches. I decided today that I would model what it means as a clergy person to break this code and this unspoken conspiracy of silence in my own family, in our own family, by inviting my cousin Terrence, whom I haven't seen in 22 years, to be with us today. I reached out to him 2 years ago. I asked my mother to track down his number, and she tracked down his number and gave me his number. And I called him, and we spoke. And I apologized to him for participating unknowingly in this kind of code of silence. And so today, I thought I would invite my cousin Terrence from South Carolina to be with us today. Today's the first time I've seen him in 22 years, and I want to invite Terrence to come out. Come on out, Terrence. Hey, Terrence. Well, Terrence, I want to thank you for coming today. It's good to see you. It's been too long. The last time I recall seeing you was probably my freshman year in college. I was taking my dirty laundry to Rhonda's house, my Aunt Rhonda's house, and I recall seeing you there. And after that, I lost you. We stopped seeing one another. That was the last time that I recalled seeing you. And then some years later, I learned that you had HIV, that you were positive. And I wanted you to come today because I wanted you to know, and I wanted to model to and for you and for our family and for our church family the importance of extending love and compassion to our family members when they're dealing with HIV. I want you to share with our congregation today your own journey and how it is that you came to know that you were positive.
Well, I got tested in '95, and I found out in Atlanta. It was really difficult. I wasn't expecting to be positive. It was hard because I was in my early 20s, and I had a lot of life to live, and all of a sudden, this Mack truck hit me. Even though I knew some of the things I was doing were risky, I just assumed that I was a Superman. Nothing could touch me. So I ended up finding myself in that position.
And when that happened to you, how did it impact you emotionally? How did it impact you spiritually? Because you grew up in the church. What were some of the feelings and the emotions and the thoughts that you were going through at that time? I'm talking about 1995, 1996, during that time period.
It just felt like a cloud, a dark cloud just followed me everywhere I went. There was no more joy. All the aspirations I had for the future just evaporated away. I wanted to have a family and children. I no longer saw that I had that option. And it was really hard. I mean, you can't really go to someone and say, listen, I have HIV, be my friend. Because people tend to shy from you. Even your best friends might do that. And a lot of your family would do the same.
You mentioned family and friends. How did family treat you? How did your church family respond to you? How did your friends treat you? What was the response of those, in your circle who were close to you, your family and your friends? I always saw you with Aunt Honey, your grandmother, coming to Richmond. How did family, treat and respond to you during this time?
Some of my friends, they're no longer around. Of course, I moved back home because of the illness, and the church family there in Atlanta, because it's a bigger city, they exposed to more things. It wasn't a big issue. But going from Atlanta to a small town, that's a big issue. I did have one incident when I came home. I was about mid-20s, and I was moving from my grandmother's house to my sister's house, and one of my family members told me that, why are you moving this stuff? It's nothing but junk. I had nothing at all. I mean, some clothes, shoes, and some of my drawings. And I spoke to them that just because you don't see value in it does not mean it doesn't have value. And later on in life, as I got better, my sister finally told me that some of my family members came to her and told her to put me in a nursing home at 25.
Right. Well, it was around that time where I stopped seeing you, Terrence. Is that what happened? What happened to you? Why?
I didn't come home until 1998. I was basically licking my wounds, trying to get my bearings together. It was hard. You have a idea of what your life is going to be, and then all of a sudden it shifts. And I didn't think I had the mechanisms or the components to really deal with it, so I didn't deal with it.
Sure. How did the disease affect you physically, your health, your weight, when you were going through that season in the early years, 95, 96, 97? How did it impact your weight? How did it impact your T-cell count at that time when you were at your lowest?
Oh, at my lowest, I was 156 pounds. I'm 6'4" and a half, so that's not a very good look. My T-cell count dropped to 3. It got to the point where even my skin started to break down. I could peel it off like paper.
And what turned things around for you? Were you taking your medication? Were you not taking your medication?
Well, actually, when I came home, I actually started taking my medication regularly. And as time went on, it got better and better. and now I'm 262 pounds.
So Terrence, I called you 2 years ago. It was in May of 2012. I just asked my mother to track down your number, and I called you out of the blue. And we hadn't seen one another. You probably were wondering why I called, and I called you that day to chat. And I think towards the end of that conversation, I apologized for participating in this silence, this culture of silence, because here we were kids, and we're sort of the collateral damage of our community's issues with HIV, AIDS, and a range of other issues. What did it mean to you for me to call you? How did you feel when I called you? How important was that? And what can people today do if they have a family member, a friend, or someone that they know with HIV?
Actually, I was a little surprised. I didn't understand exactly why you were calling, because actually you hadn't done anything to me. And I didn't understand why would you want to call me, someone that you hadn't seen in so many years, to apologize for something you didn't do. That took me back, but I took it as, he was reaching out. And when I found out that you were a pastor, I said, well, that's the way you're supposed to do.
Good. There might be someone listening today who has a family member with HIV. There might be someone listening today in this service today or watching who doesn't know about their status. They're wondering in the back of their mind, perhaps they have been involved in a range of activities and they don't know about their status. What would you want to say to that person? What words of encouragement, of guidance and instruction would you say to church people? What would you say to family members? And what would you say to anyone here today who might be thinking about whether I have HIV or I know I have HIV? Is there a word of encouragement or inspiration or direction that you have for folks today?
Actually, I think that everybody needs to, knowledge is power, and you need to know your status. Mm-hmm. And if you find out you're positive, you need to get into some type of treatment. Because if I would have did the right things, maybe the virus wouldn't have attacked my nervous system and caused me not to be able to use my legs fully. And for those who may have someone in their family or friend, don't see the disease, see the person.
Wow. Did you hear that? Say that again, Terrence. Say that loudly for everyone.
Don't see the disease, see the person.
Don't see the disease, see the person. Those are important words for us. And Terrence, I just want to thank you for coming all this way today to show us and to show the world what it looks like to get the victory over HIV. I want you to know that you're an inspiration to me. You're an inspiration to so many people here today. And I hope that you're coming here today and our invitation to you today will encourage somebody else here today to reach out to your loved one, to reach out to your family member, to make sure we break the conspiracy of silence in our families and in our churches. Thank you so much, Terrence, for being here today.